The GEEK Files, 2026, April 25th, still in Burnaby. Fall 88, spring of 92, Transprovincial at a terrace. So Transprovincial bought, when I was there, 3 Bristol freighters, a bunch of spares, stuff like that from New Zealand. No, the Hercules engine, Bristol Hercules engine, no one's rebuilding these things. So like the Pratt & Whitney stuff, 95, the Beaver Otter, stuff like that, you could get them rebuilt. They had a lot of commonality. Not so much the Bristol freighter sleeve valves. So Transprovincial had an quote-unquote engine shop. So there's a room where when we pulled an engine off, there was a guy who went through it and fixed it. The head of maintenance, there was this New Zealand guy. And just at the end of, towards 91, his visa was up or something, so he went back to New Zealand. So the engine shop guy and one of his buddies, the engine shop guy was angling to be the head of maintenance, and his buddy, base engineer for Terrace, and his buddy was going to be the new engine guy. A lot of booze was flowing, around, we like to party. And the engine shop guy had convinced Joe, the head of maintenance in Prince Rupert, that he needed to keep the doors locked to the engine shop so that we wouldn't steal parts. And Joe said yes, because Joe was just Joe, and we would. I mean, like if we had an engine down on an aircraft, and the only place to get the part was out of the engine shop, we'd rob it, because it doesn't matter how fancy your rebuilt engines are. If your company's broken, you're not flying any aircraft. But it also meant that you never really knew what was going on in the engine shop. Man, I wish I could remember these 2 guys' names. It'll probably come to me later. But we did know that they both liked the tipple, and that there was a bottle kept. See, who knows what was going on. So one day, we do an engine change with a fresh engine out of the engine shop. And so, you put the engine on, you get it all hooked up, change out the oil coolers, the oil cooler lines, take the prop apart, clean it, put all the accessories on, make sure they're clean. And then you walk the prop through to make sure that there's the bottom cylinders aren't hydrolocked. So round engines, the bottom cylinder or cylinders, they're dry sump engines, but as the oil from the rest of the engine drains down, you can get it leaking past the piston rings, filling up the bottom cylinder. And when you start the engine, there's enough oomph in it that if there's too much oil in the bottom cylinder, it will just come up hard stop. Liquids are incompressible, so this piston is just basically coming into a hard stop, and then you bend stuff. Bending stuff isn't a really good idea. So we're walking this engine through, and we come up to a hard stop. Like there's some real resistance in turning this through. So the next thing you do is you turn it backwards. So on a poppet valve on a normal engine, if you turn the engine backwards, sometimes you can get the valves to open and drain out whatever is in the engine, because and clear the hydrolock. But this thing, we walked it backwards and it was not going. So, but it wasn't really, and as well, sometimes if it feels resistant, but the valves aren't really sealing well, you can gently walk it through, and sometimes it'll just push the oil out past the valves. So this thing, but it's a sleeve valve, so it doesn't really react that way. So we figure, well, maybe we can push whatever's the oil that's in there, because these are air cooled, there's only oil, past the piston rings and piston sleeve rings, and maybe out through the ports, because these things had huge ports. Like, they're just massive ports in these things, cut in the sleeves. And it's not going. So what did we do? So we pulled the plugs. We talked to the engine guys. Oh no, there's nothing wrong, and blah 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 blah. You're not doing it right, blah blah blah. So we just screw them. So the other thing you can do is start pulling plugs, and hopefully the oil will drain out. So we start pulling plugs, and we can't get anything out. And then the Bristol Freighter plugs, they're flat topped cylinder heads, so the plugs sit right in the top, and you can look down in. So we start pulling plugs, and on one of the top outboard cylinders, there's something in the cylinder that's not oil. So we pull the head off, and there's a rag. There's a shop rag inside the cylinder that's stopping it from moving. Okay, so apparently these two guys got in there, and for whatever reason, before they put the cylinder head on, they neglected to check what was in the cylinder, and they left the shop rag on top of the piston. And that's what we were trying to do, and that's why it felt squishy. It didn't feel like oil. Like when you get oil in a cylinder, it's a hard stop. There's no moving it. This felt really soft and squishy. That's what it was. So, yeah. And then they started blaming us. Oh, it wasn't us. We couldn't do it. We're going like, this came right out of your shop. And yeah, no, it wasn't us. Came out of your shop, and you had, it couldn't have been. And then, oh no, someone must have been in there bugging. This is why we keep the door locked, because someone must have been in there bugging us, and we got distracted and left the rag in there. So, well, why didn't you just go back and double check? Like, this is your only job, is to make sure these engines are good. Yeah, the amount of just absolute BS that they were spewing trying to cover up this mistake was really good. Anyway, yeah, so we pulled the rag out, buttoned it up, and away the engine went. But this will come back. This will really, this in a later story, this comes back to haunt Joe, the head of maintenance, down in Prince Rupert. Yeah, so making appropriate life decisions. You don't make any money, but boy, do you get good stories.